Hey guys, what's up? It's Drew here, and today we'll be taking a look at the Malfeasance exotic hand cannon. This weapon is incredibly interesting, and there's a lot to talk about with it, so this might be a little bit of a longer video. Let's get started though. Malfeasance is a precision hand cannon. It fires at 180 RPM and has 78 impact. It hits for 57 to the head for a critical shot and 39 damage to the body. This equates to a 1 second optimal time to kill, taking 2 crit, 2 body, and a 1.33 second base time to kill with 5 body shots. Malfeasance has some very interesting key perks. The first and most notable is Explosive Shadow. Shoot tainted slugs that burrow into the enemy. Stacking enough slugs causes them all to explode. And then we have Taken Predator, bonus damage against taken enemies and Gambit invaders. So let's talk some more about the Explosive Shadow perk. This applies a debuff to a target for each shot or slug landed on them, and after a target reaches ×5, the slugs detonate and do additional damage. The slugs can be from any source, so teammates using Malfeasance can shoot the same target, and once that one target has 5 slugs from multiple sources that have hit them, a detonation will go off. So again, this means teammates can be using Malfeasance, and when you collectively land 5 slugs in one target, the slugs will detonate. So the more teammates you have using Malfeasance, the more frequent and common the detonations become. Landing a single slug on a target will give them a debuff, and it lasts for approximately 4 to 5 seconds. However, each time you land an additional slug on a target with the current debuff, it will extend that debuff by an additional 4 to 5 seconds. By this logic, if you were to land shots with perfect timing, you would have roughly 25 seconds to land 5 shots on a target and trigger a detonation. Each detonation triggers 5 ticks of 20 damage to total 100 additional damage, and 1 tick of 20 damage is 35% of a critical hit, which is 57 damage. This is consistent with the values found in PvE and Gambit as well, but we'll briefly go over that later. The slug detonation does have a small blast radius of about 1 to 1.5 meters, but will only deal full damage output within 1 meter, so if 2 targets are literally standing right next to each other. There's a lot of really cool utility to this detonation mechanic, and I'll be talking about it through the course of the video. The 5-shot detonation will counter Guardian's at 6 resilience, and guarantee an approximate 1.33 to 1.4 second time to kill with a hand cannon, taking only all body shots. Normally, 6 resilience against the precision hand cannon archetype will make it take an additional body shot, or 1 crit 4 body in order to kill in 5 shots. This negates that and allows it to maintain an incredibly forgiving body shot time to kill. The 5-shot detonation also somewhat counters high recovery. Against a 10 recovery enemy, shooting them in the 5-second window required to extend that duration of their Malfeasance debuff, regardless of if they begin to recover, will result in a 5-shot kill. Sometimes though, it will take at least 1 critical hit necessary to do so. The 5-shot detonation was also able to counter health gains and overshields like the Sentinel's overshield and the Warlock's healing rift, or even, if you encounter it, the Wormhusk Crown. Honestly, where was this gun last meta? A hand cannon we needed to counter the Wormhusk Crown. Now let's move on to the stats of the Malfeasance. It has 50 range, 96 stability, 32 handling, 64 reload, 50 aim assist, and 98 recoil direction. For stability, the stability, as you can probably guess, was incredibly high. I didn't think this kind of stability existed in all of Destiny. On controller, the screen ever so barely moves upwards, if any at all. And even at some pretty decent ranges, there's no recoil compensation really necessary to repeatedly land your headshots, which adds to the weapon's consistency and allows you to focus purely on just landing your shots and your headshots with a lot of ease. I know I said this for the Luna's Howl review, and I said the Luna's Howl had pretty much no recoil, but I really mean it this time. I was one-upped. This has literally 0 recoil. The stability also brought some benefits to its hipfire performance, because being a precision 180 RPM hand cannon, the hipfire was pretty accurate, and combined with that stability and the guarantee of a 5-shot kill, made hipfire in a lot of scenarios pretty viable, and was a small bonus I quite enjoyed. Now let's talk about range. Malfeasance had a 29 meter effective range before experiencing any sort of damage drop-off. This is in line with some other popular hand cannons like the old Dire Promise, and is about average. But if we think of the detonation effect, 5 body shots will kill at 43 meters because of the detonation damage that goes off. That's debatably the biggest, most useful ability of that detonation effect. So just as a comparison, Ace of Spades has a 35 meter effective range before any damage drop off. But even with the damage buff of Memento Mori, still requires 3 critical hits at 44 meters to kill, whereas Malfeasance can kill in 5 body shots. I'm pretty sure since it was hitting for 46 damage to the body, it also can't even kill in 4 body shots with Memento Mori at that range. Again, this detonation effect made Malfeasance range performance very consistent. The only downside to the range was because of the lowish range stat itself. You could definitely notice a little bit of bloom or inaccuracy on the shots fired if you're firing at max rate of fire. To improve the consistency in this regard, you can try using the Malfeasance with Lucky Pants. In terms of handling, it does have a relatively low handling stat, and you can tell because the draw speed of this weapon is incredibly long. Probably the longest draw speed of any weapons I've used in Destiny. ADS speed didn't feel too bad or too clunky in any way, but if it is a little slow for you, I suggest using a hand cannon targeting perk on one of your armor pieces so you can get a little bit more consistent shot reg as well as a little quicker ADS speed. Also, if you can't stand the draw speed, another reason to use Lucky Pants for its instant swap speed. Let's move on and talk about some PvE stuff now. The perk Taken Predator gives you 15% bonus damage against taken enemies. And as I mentioned earlier, the Detonation Blast in most scenarios gives roughly a 35% damage bonus to each critical hit. One individual tick of damage from the detonation effect was 35% of what a normal critical hit would be. This was consistent across all PvE activities against Taken Primeval and enemies in Gambit, and even a simple Ogre in a Lost Sector. However, oddly enough, against Kali and Sirochi, this damage bonus was halved to 17.5%. But even compared to other parts of the raid, in my test against Riven, the damage bonus was again 35%. I'm not sure what causes this damage inconsistency, but here it is, just so you know. So I mentioned earlier, 5 shots from any Malfeasance on a single target will cause a detonation. So hypothetically, you can get an entire group using Malfeasance, and you'd get some pretty frequent explosions and a lot of damage bonus off. So I decided to do a little bit of theory crafting here. So we can assume that hypothetically 5 people using Malfeasance can detonate an explosion in 1 shot each on a target like Kali in the Last Wish raid. Malfeasance can fire around 30 shots in a 15-second period, including its reloads. We can also hypothesize that 5 people shooting Malfeasance can trigger 30 explosions, 1 explosion for 1 shot each, in the absolute most perfect scenario in a 15-second period of time. However, the Malfeasance detonation lasts for approximately 0.16 seconds, and in that time you can fire 2 Malfeasance shots, so there's a possibility in which the game will not trigger another Malfeasance detonation if one is currently active. Unfortunately, it is incredibly difficult to tell if continuous detonations are happening at the same time or continuously one after another, or on sort of a cooldown and happening in bursts. It's incredibly hard to tell how this works based on the minor visual indicators, and even with 4 people, including myself, shooting a boss, it was incredibly difficult to tell how the detonations were working. Moving on though, 1 headshot out of Malfeasance dealt 7,810 damage to Kali, which means 5 headshots dealt 39,050 damage. 1 detonation against Kali dealt 6,870 damage, but remember, this is lower than normal because of that weird inconsistency where each detonation tick is accountable for 17.5% of a normal critical hit. So if we wanted to scale this to most other things in Destiny, we'd have to double that damage to equal 35% per tick of a normal critical hit. And in that case, we'd get 13,740 damage per detonation. So with 5 people, if you can hit 30 shots in 15 seconds, that means you could total 150 shots over 5 people, which in terms of damage would total 1,171,500 damage. Against Kali, assuming there's going to be 1 detonation per shot with 5 people to total 30 detonations in a perfect scenario, that would deal 206,100 damage. Or, if you're not facing Kali or Shirochi and you're getting the normal 35% damage, then you can assume you're going to get 412,200 damage. from the 30 detonations alone. This means that in an absolutely perfect scenario where we assume that the Malfeasance will have 1 detonation per every 1 shot across 5 people, we will get 1,377,600 damage against Kali or Shirochi. And if you're not against Kali or Shirochi and you're getting the normal detonation damage, then you can expect around 1,583,700 damage in that perfect scenario. Also, in the case where the detonations don't work one after another and you can only get something like 15 detonations off, the damage for Kali or Shirochi would be the normal damage against most things in the Destiny world. So why did I do this kind of theory crafting? Well, because I wanted to find a scenario where maybe the Malfeasance, if used in the correct way in PvE, can beat and have more of a point to using than the Luna's Howl or Not Forgotten. Like Malfeasance, Luna's Howl can fire about 30 shots in a 15-second period of time, including its reloads. It deals 6,468 damage per normal headshot without Magnificent Howl, its signature perk, active, and 14,875 damage per headshot with Magnificent Howl active. This means per 10 shots, with the first 2 headshots dealing 6,468 damage, and the remaining 8 shots in the Meg dealing 14,875 each, that means per 10 shots, we are getting 131,936 damage. Multiply that now by 3 for 30 shots will give us 395,808 damage per person. So 150 shots across 5 people with the Luna's Howl will total 1,979,040 damage, higher than the very perfect scenario and assumption of the Malfeasance. Keep in mind that the calculations for the Malfeasance did include the bonus damage against taken enemies, and conversely doesn't include if you were to put a boss spec mod on the Luna's Howl. So unfortunately, I don't see much reason to be using Malfeasance. It of course does more damage than the average primary, but with Not Forgotten and Luna's Howl existing, they are clearly the highest damage primary weapons in the game, and they don't take up your exotic slot, which frees you up for using Whisper or Sleeper. And of course, since it's a PvE activity, this also translates to Gambit, unfortunately. There's a bit more of a case in Gambit because you could argue for people using this and just shooting ads casually are bound to trigger detonations without even remotely trying and in quick frequency to get bonus damage and clear ads very quickly and effortlessly. Not to say that it's difficult to do, but with Luna's Howl you'd have to hit 2 shots without missing and then not miss afterwards. So if a teammate happens to kill an ad that you're trying to activate the perk off of or continue the damage of, then you might end up losing your buff. Whereas with Malfeasance, shooting casually, normally, and effortlessly against targets as a team will inevitably grant you a higher damage output and give your team an easier time dealing with majors and chunkier enemies so you can conserve some special and heavy ammo. From a pure damage point of view and potential point of view, the Luna's Howl is better. But from a more effortless, practical point of view, the Malfeasance makes a great case for itself, and I think performs best in Gambit with the majority of the team using Malfeasance and using that to take care of majors incredibly quickly. The first thing that comes to mind is being able to take out blockers quickly, since they count as taken, and maybe the Primeval Envoys, the wizards that give you your Primeval Slayer buff. The Taken Predator perk has an effect that deals more damage to invaders in Gambit. Against a 595 enemy, while at 586 light, I dealt 76 damage to the head, which from the normal damage output of 57 would be a 33% boost in damage. This damage buff didn't really increase lethality and more so just negated the overshield bonus on invaders, resulting in an optimal kill taking 3 crit and 1 body shot. Unfortunately, not quite as good as the Luna's Howl that can just 3-tap to the head against invaders, or even better yet, 2-tap an ad to proc the perk, and 2-tap an invader. As much as there's an argument to be made about the ease of use with Malfeasance on a team in Gambit and clearing ads and blockers, I think at the end of the day, the Luna's Howl is still better. So I'd like to see a buff given to Malfeasance, considering that I can assume that it was made to be used in Gambit. I'd like to see a buff for it that makes it do more significant damage, maybe against taken enemies, maybe against invaders, but right now, considering it's an exotic and Luna's Howl isn't, there's little reason to be using it over the Luna's Howl. And it has to do more considerable damage to be even considered to be using over other exotics. So in PvE, like the raid or against bosses, there's no reason for this weapon to be taking your exotic slot. In Gambit, you have a little bit of a reason, but still it's kind of overshadowed by the Luna's Howl. We find ourselves back at PvP, which is actually where this weapon performs best, I think. Malfeasance doesn't have the potential like other weapons do, maybe with a really fast time to kill, like the Luna's Howl does, or the Not Forgotten, or maybe even the Ace of Spades, but I think it has a higher degree of consistency than almost every other primary weapon in the game. It's almost always guaranteed to be a 5-shot kill, whether you're at insane ranges like 44 meters, it's a 5-shot body shot kill. Or maybe against some overshields, Wormhusk, healing rifts, regenerative abilities, nope, it's generally a 5-shot kill. High resilience or recovery, nope. Probably going to be a 5-shot kill. As much as Luna's Howl and Ace of Spades give you that potential for a very fast time to kill, should you miss it, you're then punished by a slower overall time to kill. Using 6 resilience with Malfeasance puts a lot of pressure on a Luna's Howl user to hit their 3-tap, and if they don't, they could be punished for it. The 5-shot detonation pretty well takes care of any range that you would need, as I mentioned, but it doesn't end there because the stability on Malfeasance is absolutely insane, and this stability, having pretty much no recoil, gives you all the freedom in the world to very easily land headshots and just land your shots in general for a 4-shot kill, or at the very least a 5-shot kill in any scenario. This weapon might not be flashy or do anything spectacular, but Malfeasance is the yin to the Luna's Howl's yang, where the Luna on one end represents the best possible potential of a hand cannon, where on the opposite end the Malfeasance shows the best possible consistency. Which is more important? Well, that's up to you. If you're a player that you think you can hit headshots the majority of the time, and you're okay with that degree of risk, well then Luna's Howl is probably the weapon for you, and landing your headshots will pay off in beating Malfeasance. But if you don't want a whole lot of risk, and you just want a ton of consistency and know what to expect all the time, well, Malfeasance might be the weapon for you. And I've got yet to try this, but maybe in a future video, we'll try a whole team running Malfeasance and see the results we get in PvP. Might be pretty strong. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. As always, it's been Drew here today, and I'll catch you guys later.